He only meant to take the wrong elevator for a few seconds. But those doors opened to a nightmare buried for 8 years. The poor man, pushing his worn maintenance cart, stood frozen when he saw her. The woman in the expensive black suit, the powerful CEO of the entire building, couldn't breathe either. They had loved each other once, had a future planned. Then one person disappeared, taking a secret that could destroy an empire. And now, in that cold elevator, the truth was about to come back for payment. Daniel Wright's hands were covered in grease when his phone buzzed. He wiped them on his maintenance uniform, leaving dark streaks across the faded blue fabric. The screen showed the school's number. His stomach dropped before he even answered. "Mr. Wright? This is Nurse Patterson. Lily has a fever of 102. You need to come get her." Daniel didn't wait for more details. He abandoned his toolbox in the basement mechanical room of Hartstone Tower and ran toward the service elevator. But it was out of order, a yellow caution sign blocking the entrance. Without thinking, he turned and sprinted down the corridor, spotting the gleaming brass doors of the executive elevator bank. He knew he wasn't supposed to use them. Maintenance staff had their own lifts, their own hallways, their own invisible boundaries in this 50-story monument to wealth. But his daughter needed him. Nothing else mattered. The elevator arrived empty. Daniel stepped inside, his reflection fragmented in the polished mirrors. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, cheap uniform 2 sizes too big, work boots held together with duct tape. He pressed the lobby button repeatedly, as if speed could be summoned through urgency. The elevator stopped on the 48th floor, top executive level. Daniel moved to the corner, making himself small, invisible. He stared at his boots. The doors opened. Evelyn Hart stepped inside. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. He knew those heels black Louboutins, the ones she always said, made her feel invincible. He knew that perfume, subtle and expensive. He knew the way she carried herself, shoulders back, spine straight, like she was born to command rooms. He looked up. She looked over. Time collapsed. 8 years vanished in a heartbeat. They were back in that tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn, sharing coffee at 3 a.m. while working on building designs. They were at the pier in Red Hook, her head on his shoulder, watching container ships pass under the Verrazano Bridge. They were in love, broke, and fearless. But that was before everything shattered. Before he disappeared from her life like smoke. Evelyn's briefcase slipped from her hand. It hit the floor with a crack that echoed in the small space. Neither of them moved to pick it up. Daniel. His name came out like a wound reopening. He couldn't speak. His throat had closed. All he could do was stare at the woman he'd loved more than anything in the world. She looked different now, harder, sharper. Her hair was shorter, cut in a severe bob that framed a face that had learned not to show weakness. But her eyes were the same. Those green eyes that used to look at him like he hung the moon. Now they looked at him like he was a ghost. Or worse, a betrayal made flesh. The elevator moved downward. 47, 46, 45. You work here? Her voice was ice over stone. Maintenance. The word tasted like failure in his mouth. For how long? 3 months. And you didn't. She stopped, swallowed, started again. You didn't think I should know? Daniel wanted to say so many things. That he'd seen her name on the building every single day and felt his heart break all over again. That he'd taken this job because he was desperate. Because Lily needed health insurance, and this was the only place that would hire someone with his blacklisted resume. That he'd been using the service elevator for 3 months specifically to avoid this moment. But his phone buzzed again. The school. I have to go, he said. My daughter is sick. The elevator reached the lobby. The doors opened. Daniel walked out without looking back. Behind him, Evelyn stood motionless, staring at the space where he'd been. Her carefully constructed world had just cracked down the middle. And she didn't even know the worst part yet. Daniel's truck, a 1,998 Ford Ranger with 240,000 miles and a passenger door held shut with wire, coughed to life on the third try. He didn't care about the smoke billowing from the exhaust or the way the steering wheel shook at every red light. He only cared about getting to his daughter. P.S. 147 inches, the Bronx looked the same as it did every afternoon. Tired, overcrowded, underfunded. Daniel parked illegally and ran inside. Lily sat in the nurse's office, her small body curled in a plastic chair. She wore her favorite purple dress, the one with pockets big enough for rocks and interesting leaves. Her hearing aids caught the fluorescent light. When she saw Daniel, her face transformed. "Daddy!" She signed the word as she said it, her hands moving in the fluid language they shared. Daniel knelt beside her, pressing his palm to her forehead. "Too hot. Way too hot. I don't feel good," she signed, her small fingers shaky. "I know, baby. We're going home." He signed back, then spoke aloud for the nurse's benefit. "Thank you for calling me." The nurse handed him a thermometer reading and a note about symptoms. Daniel nodded, barely listening. He scooped Lily into his arms, all 46 pounds of her, and carried her to the truck. In the cab, he buckled her seatbelt twice to make sure it was secure. He kept one hand on her knee the whole drive, occasionally glancing over to make sure she was okay. Lily dozed against the window, her hearing aids making small feedback noises. Their apartment was a walk-up in a building that had seen better decades. Third floor, no elevator, radiator that clanged all night. But Daniel had made it home. The walls were covered in Lily's artwork, crayon drawings of flowers and butterflies, watercolor paintings from school, a clay handprint she'd made in kindergarten. Her books were organized by color on a shelf Daniel had built from salvaged wood. Everything was clean, everything was loved. He laid Lily on the couch and covered her with the quilt his mother had made before she died. Then he went to the kitchen, barely bigger than a closet, and wet a washcloth with cool water. "Open up," he signed, holding out children's Tylenol and a cup of water. Lily obeyed, making a face at the taste. Daniel smiled and wiped her forehead with the cloth. "Story?" She signed hopefully. "After you rest," Daniel signed back. "Close your eyes." He sat on the floor beside the couch, his hand resting on her small arm, feeling her pulse. This was his whole world. This little girl who'd come into his life 8 years ago and changed everything. She didn't know about Evelyn, didn't know about the career he'd lost, the dreams he'd buried, the life he'd sacrificed. She just knew Daddy, and Daddy always took care of her. Daniel's phone sat on the coffee table, screen cracked from a drop last winter. No messages, no one to call. He'd lost touch with everyone from his old life. His parents were gone. His friends had been colleagues, and colleagues disappeared when you got blacklisted. It was just him and Lily against the world, and he wouldn't have it any other way. But as he sat there in their tiny apartment, watching his daughter sleep, his mind kept drifting back to those elevator doors opening, to Evelyn's face, to the past he thought he'd escaped. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Evelyn canceled her 4 o'clock meeting, then her 5 o'clock. By 6, her assistant Jennifer knocked cautiously on the door. "Miss Hart? The board members are asking. Tell them I'm ill." Evelyn's voice came out rougher than intended. "Reschedule everything for tomorrow." Jennifer hesitated. In 3 years of working for Evelyn Hart, she'd never seen her boss cancel anything. The woman once ran a shareholders' meeting with a 101-degree fever and food poisoning. "Are you sure you're all right?" "I'm fine. Just go home, Jennifer. I'll see you tomorrow." When the door clicked shut, Evelyn finally allowed herself to move. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. From the 48th floor, the city looked like a circuit board. All lights and patterns and connections. Orderly. Logical. Unlike the chaos in her chest. Daniel Wright. 8 years. 8 years of believing he'd betrayed her. 8 years of building walls. 8 years of becoming the kind of woman who didn't flinch, didn't break, didn't let anyone close enough to hurt her. And he'd been working in her building for 3 months. Maintenance. The man who'd graduated top of his class at Cornell's architecture program was pushing a janitor's cart through her building. The man who'd designed award-winning affordable housing proposals was fixing broken toilets and replacing light bulbs. What happened to him? Evelyn turned from the window and walked to her desk. Mahogany, imported, worth more than most people's cars. She opened the bottom drawer, the one she never let Jennifer organize, and pulled out a manila folder she hadn't opened in years. Inside were pieces of a life she'd tried to forget. A photo. Daniel and Evelyn at his graduation, her arms around his neck, both of them laughing. She was wearing a sundress. He was wearing his cap crooked. They looked absurdly young. A blueprint. Their first project together, a community center for Red Hook. His lines were confident, hers were tentative. He'd taught her to trust her instincts. A note on coffee-stained napkin. E. Working late. Left you the last donut. It's jelly, your favorite. Love you. D. Evelyn traced the words with one finger. Then she found what she'd been looking for. The employment termination letter. 8 years old, signed by her father, James Hart, CEO at the time. Daniel Wright, effective immediately, is terminated for breach of contract, corporate espionage, and violation of non-disclosure agreements. No severance, no references. Any attempt to contact Heartstone Group or its employees will result in legal action. She'd been in graduate school when it happened. Her father had called her into his office and shown her evidence emails, file transfers, meetings with competitors. It looked damning. It looked real. He used you, her father had said, his hand on her shoulder, to get information about our projects. I'm sorry, sweetheart, but it's better you know now. She'd believed him. Why wouldn't she? James Hart was her father. He'd raised her after her mother died. He'd built an empire. He didn't lie. Daniel had disappeared that same week. No calls, no explanations, just gone. It confirmed everything her father had said. Guilty people run. But now, staring at that termination letter, Evelyn felt something shift. Daniel hadn't run far. He was here, in New York, in her building, working in maintenance when he should have been designing skyscrapers. And he had a daughter. Evelyn looked at the photo again, at Daniel's smile, at the way he'd looked at her like she was his whole future. People didn't fake that, did they? Her intercom buzzed. Security. Miss Hart? Sorry to bother you. There's been a request from HR. Background check on an employee. Routine promotion review. Name? Daniel Wright. Maintenance. Evelyn's hand tightened on the photo. Send me his file. Everything. I'll handle it personally. Yes, ma'am. She hung up and stared at the city lights. 8 years of certainty were beginning to feel like 8 years of lies. The school called it a heating system malfunction. The maintenance staff called it a complete boiler failure that would take 3 days minimum to fix. Either way, PS 147 was closed until further notice. Daniel stared at the automated message on his phone. Lily was better, fever gone, energy back, but he had to work. He'd already missed yesterday. Missing today meant losing pay they desperately needed. Can you be very good today? He asked Lily over breakfast. Daddy has to work, and you have to come with me. Lily's eyes went wide. She'd never been to his workplace. Your big building? My big building, Daniel confirmed. But you have to stay close to me. And quiet. Lily nodded solemnly, drawing an X over her heart. Promise. He dressed her warmly, layers upon layers, and packed her backpack with books, colored pencils, and her tablet with downloaded movies. In the truck, she chattered excitedly in sign language about seeing where Daddy worked. Daniel's stomach was in knots. The chance of running into Evelyn again was high. But what choice did he have? They entered through the service entrance. Daniel's supervisor, Marcus, raised an eyebrow at Lily but didn't comment. "You're on HVAC today. 32nd floor. Thermostat complaints." "Yes, sir." Daniel set Lily up in a maintenance closet he'd converted into a makeshift break room. "Stay here, okay? I'll be back in 20 minutes. Do not leave this room. Promise." Lily signed again. But children are curious creatures, and promises made with good intentions are often broken without bad ones. 15 minutes in, Lily got bored. She'd colored 3 pictures, watched half an episode of her show, read 2 chapters of her favorite book. The closet was small and smelled like cleaning supplies, and she wondered what the rest of Daddy's building looked like. She opened the door and peeked out. A long hallway, shiny floors, no one around. Just a quick look. She wandered down the corridor, trailing her fingers along the wall. Everything was so clean, so fancy. At the end of the hall, she found beautiful brass elevator doors. They looked like gold. Lily pressed the button. The elevator arrived. She stepped inside. The buttons went up to 50. Lily had learned numbers up to 100 inches school. She pressed 48 because it was a big number, and big numbers meant important floors. The elevator rose. Lily watched the numbers change, counting them out loud to practice. The doors opened to a floor that looked completely different. Carpet instead of tile, plants in big pots, glass walls, and important-looking people in expensive clothes. Lily stepped out, fascinated. She didn't see the woman in the black suit until they almost collided. Evelyn looked down, startled. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, with dark hair in 2 braids, wearing a purple coat that was slightly too big, hearing aids in both ears, staring up at her with wide, curious eyes that were exactly the same shade of blue as Daniel's. Evelyn's breath caught. "Are you lost, sweetheart?" Lily's hands moved rapidly. "Sign language." I don't understand," Evelyn said softly. The elevator doors opened again. Daniel burst out, panic written across his face. "Lily, I told you to." He saw Evelyn and stopped cold. Lily ran to him, wrapping her arms around his legs. Daniel's hand automatically went to her head, protective, instinctive. Evelyn stared at them. Father and daughter. The pieces were rearranging themselves in her mind. How old is she? Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. 6, Daniel said. Her name is Lily. Evelyn did the math. 6 years old. Which meant, where's her mother? Daniel's jaw tightened. Gone. It's just us. They stood in the hallway, the past and present colliding. Lily looked between them, sensing something important was happening even if she couldn't hear the tension in their voices. Evelyn knelt down to Lily's level. Up close, she could see Daniel in every feature. The same stubborn chin, the same way of tilting her head when curious. This child was loved. That much was obvious. Her clothes were worn but clean. Her hair was carefully braided. Her backpack had a hand-sewn patch. Evelyn looked up at Daniel and saw something she hadn't seen in the elevator. Fear. Not of her, but for his daughter. Protective fear. Parental fear. And suddenly, nothing made sense anymore. Evelyn's office door stayed closed all morning. Jennifer fielded calls, rescheduled meetings, and told the board that Miss Hart was handling a sensitive personnel matter. Inside, Evelyn sat at her desk, surrounded by files. Daniel Wright's employment history at Heartstone Group stretched across 8 years of records. She'd started at the beginning, when he was hired as a junior architect fresh out of Cornell. The recommendations were glowing. His first projects exceeded expectations. Within 2 years, he was leading design teams. Then, she found the photos from company events. Daniel and her father, shaking hands at an awards ceremony. Daniel presenting a housing project to the board. Daniel working late nights on the Williamsburg development, the one that made Heartstone Group millions. She saw herself in some of the photos too. standing beside Daniel at a charity gala, her father between them, one hand on each of their shoulders. They looked like a family, the proud father, the rising star, the beloved daughter. What a beautiful lie it had been. Evelyn opened the termination file. The formal documents her father had shown her were there, but there were others too. Internal memos she'd never seen. Emails marked confidential executive eyes only. She read them twice to make sure she understood. The first memo, from the head of construction. James Wright found the Williamsburg material substitutions. He has documentation. The building could fail inspection. Recommend immediate damage control. The second, from legal. The NDA is airtight. If Wright signs, he cannot speak about the project defects without risking complete financial and professional destruction. Recommend settlement. $50,000 and guaranteed silence. The third, from her father himself. Wright refused the money. Claims he won't be complicit in endangering lives. Prepare termination for cause, make it stick, and make sure he never works in this city again. Evelyn's hands were shaking. She opened the final document, a non-disclosure agreement, signed by Daniel Wright, dated 8 years ago. But the terms weren't what legal had recommended. There was no settlement payment, just threats. Failure to comply will result in immediate termination, blacklisting from all NYC architectural firms, and legal prosecution to the fullest extent. Additionally, any contact with Evelyn Hart will be considered corporate espionage and prosecuted accordingly. That last line hit her like a physical blow. Her father had used her as leverage, as a weapon. Daniel hadn't disappeared because he was guilty. He'd disappeared because staying meant watching people die in faulty buildings, or leaving meant losing everything, including her. He'd chosen to lose everything. Evelyn opened her laptop with trembling fingers and accessed the archived project files. The Williamsburg development. Completed 7 years ago. She pulled up the inspection reports. They'd been altered. She could see it now, knowing what to look for. The material certifications didn't match the original specs. The load calculations were wrong. The building was still standing, but it shouldn't be. It was a disaster waiting to happen. 300 families living in apartments that could collapse. Her father had known. Had covered it up. Had destroyed Daniel to keep him quiet, and she'd believed the lie. Evelyn's intercom buzzed. "Miss Hart? Your father is here. He says it's important." Of course he was. James Hart still had an office on this floor. Still showed up every day, even though Evelyn had been CEO for 2 years. Still acted like he owned the place. Because he had owned it. For 30 years, Hartstone Group had been his kingdom, built on lies and broken lives. "Send him in," Evelyn said. Her voice sounded strange, distant. The door opened. James Hart walked in tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than Daniel's truck. He smiled. "Sweetheart, I heard you've been reviewing old employee files. Anything I can help with?" Evelyn looked at her father, the man who'd raised her, taught her business, groomed her to take over his empire, the man who'd destroyed the person she loved to protect his profits. "Yes," she said quietly. "You can tell me the truth about Daniel Wright." Daniel was replacing ceiling tiles on the 23rd floor when Marcus found him. "Right. Break room. Now." Daniel climbed down the ladder, his mind racing. He'd brought Lily to work. She'd wandered into executive territory. He'd been seen with the CEO. This was it. He was getting fired. But Marcus didn't look angry. He looked curious. In the break room, Marcus poured 2 cups of terrible coffee and sat down. "How long have you been in maintenance, Daniel?" 3 months here. 2 years total. And before that, Daniel hesitated. "Different work. Cornell graduate. Architectural degree. Won the Bronson Prize for innovative, affordable housing design." Marcus slid a piece of paper across the table. Daniel's own resume, from a lifetime ago. "I know who you are. Or who you were." How did you? My cousin works in HR. She remembered your name from old files. Got curious after seeing you with the CEO yesterday. Marcus leaned back. So, I'll ask you straight. What's a guy with your credentials doing fixing air conditioners? Daniel stared at his coffee. It's complicated. I've got time. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was seeing Evelyn again and feeling all the old wounds reopen. Maybe it was just needing to tell someone, anyone, the truth after 8 years of silence. I used to work here, Daniel said. I was an architect. Good one, too. Led the team on the Williamsburg project. Marcus nodded. The luxury apartments. Big deal. Yeah, big deal. Daniel's jaw tightened. During construction inspection, I found something. The contractor had substituted materials. Cheaper steel, substandard concrete. Everything looked fine on paper, but the building wasn't safe. Not for the long term. I ran the calculations. In 10, maybe 15 years, structural failure. People would die. Jesus. I went to my boss. Then his boss. Finally to James Hart himself. Daniel's voice went flat, empty. He told me it would cost too much to fix. Delay the project by a year. The investors would pull out. Heartstone would lose millions. So what did you do? I said I'd go to the city. To the inspectors. To the press if I had to. Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. That was a mistake. They fired you. Worse, they made me disappear. Gave me a choice. Sign an NDA and walk away quietly, or they'd destroy me. Blacklist me from every firm in New York. Bury me in lawsuits until I had nothing left. Daniel's hands tightened around the coffee cup, and they'd make sure Evelyn Miss Hart never knew the truth. They'd tell her I'd sold company secrets. Betrayed her father. Used her. Marcus whistled low. That's cold. I had just found out my girlfriend was pregnant, Daniel continued. Not Evelyn. Someone I'd... It doesn't matter. Point is, I had a baby coming. No money. No job prospects if Heartstone blacklisted me. So I signed. Took the deal. Disappeared. The building? Still standing. For now. Daniel's voice was bitter. I drive past it sometimes. 300 families, moms, dads, kids, living in apartments that might collapse around them because I wasn't strong enough to fight. You had a daughter to protect. I had hundreds of daughters to protect, and I chose mine. Daniel stood up. That's the truth, Marcus. I'm a coward who fixes toilets because it's the only work I can get. And I deserve it. Does the CEO know? The daughter Evelyn Hart? She knows what her father told her, that I'm a traitor. Daniel headed for the door. And maybe she's right. He didn't see Marcus pull out his phone after he left. Didn't see him type a text to his cousin in HR. Everything Wright said, can you verify? The reply came back in minutes. Already did. Files are messy, but it's all there. He's telling the truth. Marcus stared at his phone for a long moment. Then he forwarded the message to one more person, Jennifer Chen, executive assistant to the CEO. Sometimes the truth needs a little help finding its way home. The confrontation happened in the executive boardroom at 7 in the evening, after everyone else had gone home. Evelyn sat at the head of the table. Her father sat at the opposite end, as he always had. The same positions they'd occupied for dozens of board meetings. But this wasn't a meeting. This was a reckoning. I read the files, Evelyn said. No preamble. No small talk. All of them. Including the ones you sealed. James Hart's expression didn't change. I don't know what you're talking about. The Williamsburg project. Daniel Wright. The material substitutions that you covered up. Evelyn's voice was steady, but her hands were clenched beneath the table. He came to you about safety concerns. You destroyed his career to keep him quiet. That's a very simplified version of events. Then give me the complicated version. Evelyn leaned forward. Explain to me how threatening an honest employee and endangering 300 families was good business. James sighed and stood, walking to the windows. The same view Evelyn had, one floor down. You're young. You still think business is about right and wrong. It's not. It's about survival. People's lives. Our lives, Evelyn. This company. Your inheritance. Your future. He turned to face her. Wright was going to destroy all of that over some calculations that might or might not be accurate. They were accurate. I had an independent engineer review them. The building is a time bomb. It's been standing for 7 years, and it might stand for 7 more, or it might collapse tomorrow. You gambled with people's lives. James walked closer, his voice dropping. I gambled with our lives. Do you know what would have happened if we'd admitted those defects? Lawsuits? Investigations? Criminal charges? Heartstone Group would have been destroyed. Everything I built. Everything I was building for you. So you built it on lies instead. I built it on pragmatism. He sat down beside her, the way he used to when she was young and needed guidance. Sweetheart, you're CEO now. You'll face these choices. Sometimes there's no good option, only the least bad one. Evelyn looked at her father, really looked at him. She saw the lines around his eyes, the gray in his hair, the way he carried himself like a man who'd fought battles and won. She'd worshipped him once, wanted to be just like him. Now she just felt tired. Did you know about his daughter? James blinked. Whose daughter? Daniel's. She's 6. He's raising her alone. Working maintenance because you blacklisted him from every architectural firm in the city. Evelyn's voice cracked. He lost everything. His career, his future. And you used me as leverage. Told him if he contacted me, you'd prosecute him. For the first time, James looked uncomfortable. I did what I had to do. You destroyed a good man's life. I protected my daughter's future. No. Evelyn stood, walking to the door. You protected your ego, your pride, your empire. She opened the door. Security will escort you out. Your access to this building ends tonight. James stood slowly. You can't be serious. I'm removing you from the board, effective immediately. I've already spoken to the other members. They've agreed. Evelyn, you taught me to be strong, Dad, to make hard choices, to do what's right for the company. She met his eyes. So that's what I'm doing. Heartstone Group can't move forward while it's built on your lies. James Hart walked to the door, pausing beside his daughter. Maybe, Evelyn said. But at least I'll be able to sleep at night. She watched him leave, feeling something break and something else begin to heal. Then she picked up her phone and made a call she should have made 8 years ago. Daniel's apartment was dark when the knock came. Lily was asleep, her nightlight casting stars across the ceiling. Daniel checked the peephole, and his heart stopped. Evelyn Hart stood in his hallway. He almost didn't open the door, almost pretended he wasn't home. But she knocked again, softer this time, and he heard her say, "Please, Daniel, I know you're there." He opened the door but didn't invite her in. "It's late, I know. I'm sorry. Evelyn looked different. Smaller, somehow. Vulnerable. I read the files, all of them. I know what my father did. I know what you sacrificed." Daniel's throat tightened. "You should go. I need to talk to you. I need to—" She stopped as Lily appeared behind Daniel, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy?" "Who's here?" Daniel knelt down. "It's okay, sweetheart. Go back to bed." But Lily was curious. She looked at Evelyn with those bright blue eyes and signed, "Are you Daddy's friend?" Evelyn's hands moved hesitantly, clumsily, but they moved. "I used to be." Lily's face lit up. "You know sign language." "Just a little," Evelyn signed back. "You're doing great." Lily turned to Daniel. "Daddy, she can stay, right?" "She knows signs." Daniel looked at Evelyn. saw tears in her eyes, saw the woman he'd loved wearing the years of pain they'd both endured. "Yeah," he said quietly. "She can stay." They sat in Daniel's tiny living room, Lily between them on the couch, chattering in sign language about school and her favorite books and the rock collection she kept in her pockets. Evelyn listened like it was the most important conversation she'd ever had. When Lily finally dozed off against Daniel's shoulder, he carried her to bed. When he came back, Evelyn was looking at the photos on the wall. Lily as a baby. Lily's first birthday. Lily starting school. "She's beautiful," Evelyn said. "She's everything." Her mother? Addiction. Overdose when Lily was 8 months old. Daniel sat down heavily. "I barely knew her. We were together once, maybe twice. I was trying to forget you, trying to move on. Then she showed up pregnant and I couldn't turn my back. Whatever else I am, I'm not that. You're a good father. I'm a maintenance worker who can barely pay rent. You're a man who chose honor over comfort, who protected people even when it cost you everything." Evelyn turned to face him. "I'm sorry. For believing the lies. For not fighting to find you. For not knowing the truth you couldn't have known. I should have. I knew you, Daniel. I knew who you were. I should have questioned it. Should have demanded proof. Should have." Her voice broke. "I should have trusted you." They sat in silence. The city hummed outside. The radiator clanged. The stars from Lily's nightlight spilled into the hallway. "What happens now?" Daniel asked. "I'm fixing it. The Williamsburg building. I've hired engineers. We're evacuating residents and retrofitting everything. It's going to cost millions. Your board can deal with it. I'm also clearing your record. Restoring your professional reputation. Making sure everyone knows you were right." Evelyn looked at him. "It won't give you back the years. Won't undo the damage. But it's a start. I don't want revenge, Evelyn. It's not revenge. It's justice." She stood to leave, then paused. "And Daniel? I'd like to see Lily again. If that's okay. I've been learning sign language. I thought. Maybe I could help. Or just be around." Daniel walked her to the door. "Why?" Evelyn touched his hand. Briefly, softly. "Because 8 years ago, I lost the best thing in my life. I can't get that back. But maybe I don't have to lose it twice." The press conference happened 3 weeks later. Evelyn stood at a podium in Hartstone Tower's main lobby. Cameras everywhere. Reporters shouting questions. Behind her, a screen displayed the Williamsburg building and the renovation plans. "Hartstone Group takes full responsibility for the construction defects in the Williamsburg residential complex," she said, her voice clear and steady. "We are immediately beginning comprehensive retrofitting to ensure resident safety. All costs will be covered by Hartstone. Additionally, we are offering temporary housing to any residents who wish to relocate during construction." A reporter shouted, "Miss Hart, isn't this an admission of criminal negligence? It's an admission of failure. We failed in our duty to residents. We failed in our commitment to safety. And we failed Daniel Wright, the architect who discovered these problems and was silenced for trying to address them." The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Evelyn waited for silence. Mr. Wright acted with integrity and courage. He was punished for doing the right thing. Today, I'm publicly clearing his record and offering him the position of Chief Safety Officer at Hartstone Group. His job will be to ensure this never happens again. Later, in her office, Evelyn met with Daniel privately. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Yes, I did." Evelyn slid a contract across her desk. "This is real, Daniel. Full restoration of your architectural license. Executive position. Salary commensurate with your experience and the years you lost." Daniel stared at the papers. "This is too much. It's not enough. It will never be enough." Evelyn sat down across from him. "But I'm hoping you'll take it anyway. Not because of me, not because of us, but because those buildings need someone who actually cares about the people inside them. What about your board? Your investors? I spent 8 years building a career, learning to be ruthless, learning to make the hard choices. Evelyn smiled sadly. Turns out the hardest choice is being honest. The board will adapt or leave. Either way, Heartstone Group is changing. Daniel picked up the contract. Read it carefully. This position, it's not just oversight. It's redesigning the affordable housing division. You designed the Red Hook Community Center, the South Bronx Housing Initiative. You're brilliant, Daniel. The city needs what you can build. I haven't designed anything in 8 years. Then it's time to start again. Daniel thought about Lily, about the apartment in the Bronx, about the truck held together with hope and wire, about the life he'd built from scraps and stubbornness. Then he thought about the buildings he could create, the families he could protect, the legacy he could leave for his daughter. I want Lily in the employee daycare, he said. And I want flexibility for her appointments, therapy, audiology, school events. Done. And I want final say on all safety protocols. Non-negotiable. Done. And I want. Daniel stopped, looked at Evelyn. I want to know we can work together. Without the past, destroying everything. Evelyn met his eyes. I can't promise it won't be complicated. I can't promise it won't hurt sometimes. But I can promise I'll never lie to you again, and I'll never let anyone silence you for telling the truth. Daniel signed the contract. For the first time in 8 years, the future felt like something other than survival. It felt like possibility. 3 months later, Lily ran through the Heartstone Group employee park, her purple dress flying behind her like wings. Daddy, Evelyn, watch this. Daniel and Evelyn sat on a bench, coffee cups in hand, watching Lily demonstrate her mastery of the monkey bars. She'd grown bolder in recent weeks, more confident. The employee daycare had been good for her other kids, structured activities, friends who didn't care about hearing aids or sign language. She's fearless, Evelyn said. She gets it from her dad, Daniel replied, then smiled. The good parts, anyway. Evelyn had been learning sign language seriously now. Twice a week, after work, she met with a tutor. She practiced with Lily during lunch breaks. The conversations were still simple, but they were real, and Lily adored having another person in her world who could speak her language. How's the Williamsburg retrofit going? Evelyn asked. On schedule. Under budget, actually. Daniel pulled out his tablet, showing her the progress photos. We're using the savings to upgrade the accessibility features. Hearing loops in common areas, visual alert systems. Lily helped me design some of them. Of course she did. They watched Lily make friends with another child at the swings. Watched her sign something that made the other kid laugh. Watched her be exactly who she was without apology or fear. I have something for you, Evelyn said. She pulled out a folder. The Red Hook Community Center project. The one we designed together. Before, Daniel's breath caught. I thought that was dead. It was. But I found the original plans. And I found funding. Evelyn opened the folder, showing him updated blueprints. I want to build it. With you, properly this time. Daniel looked at the plans. At their shared dream from a lifetime ago, now possible. Evelyn, I know it's complicated. I know we're still figuring out what we are to each other. Colleagues, friends, something else. She looked at him. But this project was good. It deserved to exist. And maybe some dreams are worth a second chance. Lily ran over, breathless and happy. She signed rapidly. Can we get ice cream, please? Evelyn said, maybe last time. Evelyn laughed and signed back. Yes, ice cream. But only if you promise to share. Deal. Lily grabbed both their hands, pulling them up from the bench. They walked to the ice cream truck at the park entrance, Lily between them. chattering about flavors and toppings and the friend she'd made on the swings. Daniel watched Evelyn help Lily choose between chocolate and strawberry, watched them negotiate toppings, watched his daughter include this woman in her world with the casual acceptance children do so well. "Daddy, what's wrong?" Lily signed, seeing his expression. "Nothing's wrong, baby. Everything's good." "Then why do you look sad?" Daniel knelt down to her level. "I'm not sad. I'm just happy. Really happy." Lily considered this, then kissed his forehead. "Good. You deserve to be happy." They sat at a picnic table, eating ice cream in the late afternoon sun. Lily told them a story about her day, her hands moving faster than her mouth, her face animated and alive. Evelyn followed along, asking questions, laughing at the right parts. Daniel watched them and thought about wrong elevators, about how one accidental moment can crack open a future you'd thought was sealed forever, about how the worst day can become the beginning of something better. Lily leaned against his shoulder, sticky with ice cream and contentment. Evelyn sat across from them, her executive armor gone, just a woman learning to be part of something real. "You know what Lily told me today?" Evelyn said. "She said wrong elevators aren't mistakes, they're adventures." Daniel smiled. "Smart kid." "The smartest," Evelyn agreed, and in that moment, with his daughter beside him and his past becoming his future, Daniel Wright finally believed that some adventures were worth taking, even the ones that started with wrong elevators, even the ones that took 8 years to find their way home.